In the darkness between stars, there are mysteries we expect. Dying suns, collapsing worlds, the silent mathematics of gravity carrying debris into spirals of ruin. But once in a while, the universe betrays its own rules. Once in a while, something appears that should not be. Imagine the sweep of telescopes across the sky, the patient eyes of astronomers combing the heavens for faint whispers of light, when suddenly a shape emerges, a shape so precise, so deliberate, that it tears through centuries of certainty. Orbiting a star in its final breaths, there hangs not an asteroid, not a fragment of rock, but a cube. A perfect geometric cube. The mind resists it. The cosmos does not make right angles. Stars collapse into spheres, planets form as orbs, even crystals fracture along irregular seams. Nature prefers curves, spirals, disorder. Yet here was a cube. Its face is smooth, its edges sharp, its corners unbroken against the violence of the star it circled. How can such perfection arise in a universe of chaos? Is it chance or design? A question lingers like a cold hand at the back of the neck. Who placed it there, and why? The dying star itself provides the stage. Once it was a sun blazing with warmth, perhaps sustaining worlds that spun in its embrace. Now it swells with age, bloated into a red giant, consuming the last of its fuel. Its surface churns with fire, each flare of plasma a scream of its impending death. Around such a star, one might expect debris, shattered moons, drifting ash, fragments of long-dead planets. But not this. Not a flawless cube, orbiting with silent indifference, defying both the destruction and explanation. What intelligence chooses a star at the end of its life as the resting place for a monument? The discovery ripples through humanity like a tremor. At first, scientists question their instruments. Perhaps the angles are illusions, artifacts of resolution, a trick of perspective. But the more they look, the sharper it becomes. Shadows cut with impossible precision. Measurements confirm what the eye fears to believe. Its dimensions are exact, to a degree no natural process could achieve. The cube is real, it is deliberate, and it is waiting. But waiting for what? That is the question that transforms the discovery into a terror. The universe is not a place of comfort. It is vast, indifferent, and mostly empty. Yet, emptiness is easier to bear than intention. If something made this cube, then we are not alone. If something placed it here, it may be watching. And if it is watching, what does it expect us to do? The story of human civilization has always been the story of geometry. From the pyramids rising in desert sands, to the cathedrals pointing toward heaven, from the squares drawn on parchment, to the equations etched into chalkboards, we have worshipped at the altar of perfect form. The cube orbiting a dying star is not just a discovery, it is a mirror. It reflects our own obsession with order, our yearning for meaning. But in that reflection lies unease. Was it placed here because we would recognize it? Was it left as a lure for minds that dream in angles and measure their existence in numbers? Imagine the first time images of the cube are broadcast to the world. A storm of voices erupts, scientists, theologians, philosophers, politicians, each grasping for explanation. Some see proof of God, a divine artifact left at the boundary of life and death. Others see a warning, a cosmic tombstone marking the folly of civilizations that reach too far. Still others whisper of technology, of beings so advanced that they sculpted space with precision we cannot comprehend. The cube fractures our certainties even as it hangs unbroken in the sky. And yet, for all the theories, the cube remains silent. No signals escape it. No surface markings reveal themselves. Its faces are smooth as obsidian, unyielding to the gaze of our instruments. It drifts, patient, as the star beneath it heaves in agony. And in that silence lies the deepest fear. Silence does not mean absence. Silence can mean calculation, waiting, observation. What does it mean for something artificial to orbit a dying star? It is not a place of permanence. The star will soon collapse, perhaps exploding into a white dwarf or scattering its guts across the galaxy. Why place the cube here, in the shadow of destruction? Perhaps it was meant to be seen only at this moment, when human eyes are sharp enough to detect it, when our civilization is hungry enough for meaning to notice. Or perhaps it was never meant for us at all. Perhaps it is a relic from another age, another intelligence, left to decay in the furnace of stellar death, its survival an accident of eternity. We search for analogies in our own history, time capsules buried in the earth, monuments carved in stone, messages etched into metals designed to last long after we are gone. But those messages were always left for someone, for descendants, for strangers, for the unknown future. Who would place a message orbiting a dying star? Who would gamble that any eyes would remain to see it, any minds left to ponder it? Unless the cube was not meant to be understood, unless its very presence, its very impossibility, is the message. The cube forces us to confront a darker possibility. Perhaps we were not meant to find comfort in it at all. Perhaps its perfection is a challenge, a puzzle with no solution, designed to remind us of our limits. In a universe that thrives on entropy, a flawless cube is a scar, a contradiction, a whisper that says, you are not the only ones who build. You are not the only ones who dream of shapes. You are not the first. So we watch it, and it watches us. The dying star pulses with light, each flare a countdown to its end, and around it the cube drifts, untouched, unmoved. Some say it is a tomb, holding the remains of a civilization long extinct. Some say it is a seed, waiting to hatch when the star collapses. Others fear it is a trap, a test, or a signal, a flare not to us, but to something else lurking in the deep. Which of these is worse? That it was meant for us, or that it was not? Every telescope that turns to it becomes a mirror turned inward. We search the cube for answers, but what we find is ourselves, our fears, our obsessions, our smallness against the vast. It is as though the universe placed a riddle at the heart of dying fire, and dared us to solve it before the flames consumed it whole. And in that dare, in that impossibility, lies the beginning of the story. Not of the cube, but of us. For the moment we found it, we could no longer pretend the universe was silent. We could no longer believe we were alone in its endless dark. And we could no longer escape the question that now burns brighter than the dying star itself. If a perfect cube orbits a sun in its death throes, then what intelligence placed it there? And what happens when we finally dare to approach? What is the difference between what nature creates and what intelligence imposes upon it? This is not a question of poetry, but of physics, of the very laws that govern existence. In the wild patterns of the cosmos, in the spiraling arms of galaxies, in the frozen architectures of ice, nature reveals an undeniable truth. It does not care for perfection. It does not craft cubes. It does not draw straight lines or sculpt flawless angles. The universe is a painter of curves, of fractures, of spirals that stretch into infinity. And so, when we see a cube, pristine and deliberate, floating against the flames of a dying sun, we are forced to confront a possibility we are unprepared for. Perfection means intention. Intention means intelligence. And intelligence means we are not alone. Think of the earliest structures we built on Earth. The pyramids of Giza, rising out of the desert sands, their angles sharp against the horizon. Stonehenge, a ring of monoliths aligned with the heavens. The ziggurats, the temples, the walls of cities all traced with lines, human hands imposed upon chaos. We sought straightness, balance, order, because in those shapes we believed there was meaning. To bend nature into geometry was to defy decay, to leave behind something eternal. And now, orbiting a red giant star hundreds of light years away, we see a cube, geometry at a cosmic scale. Did another intelligence, like us, chase eternity through the angles of perfection? Scientists debate with unease. Natural processes, after all, are inventive. Could a cube form in space? Some reach for possibilities. An unusually large crystal of iron, a mineral frozen in structure, fractured by pressure into symmetry. Yet such processes fail under scrutiny. No crystal spans kilometers across, unbroken, orbiting stably in the furnace of a dying star. No natural catastrophe sculpts six faces in flawless equality. To propose such an explanation is to clutch at straws, to deny the obvious. The cube is not an accident. It is not a stone. It is an artifact. But what kind of mind makes such an artifact? Here the philosophy begins. Intelligence in the universe need not think like us. It need not love symmetry, need not revere straight lines. Yet, here we are, staring at an object that mirrors our obsessions. Did we discover it because we were ready, or because the makers understood that any mind, anywhere, would know perfection when it saw it? The cube is not just alien, it is universal. It speaks in a language that transcends biology, culture, and planet. A square face, a right angle, a ratio repeated on all sides. These are ideas written in the bones of mathematics itself. To see the cube is to understand it was made, and that understanding bridges the void between us and whoever carved it. And yet, the cube does more than reveal intelligence. It reveals time. For what does it mean to orbit a star at its death? Perhaps the cube was left recently, a deliberate placement to coincide with our rise, a cosmic message carefully timed. Or perhaps it has drifted there for millions of years, its builders long gone, their civilization dust in the galactic winds. We do not know. All we know is that the cube endures, geometry against entropy, form against decay. It endures where nothing else should. That endurance is itself unnatural and unsettling. Our instruments search for explanations, but the cube resists them. Its surfaces reflect starlight in ways that suggest impossible smoothness, smoother than glass, smoother than polished metal. No seams, no fractures, no erosion. As if it is untouched by time. How can anything orbit so close to destruction and not erode, not crack, not even wear at the edges? Some propose advanced materials, stronger than anything we know. Others whisper of physics itself being bent, the cube existing partly outside our reality, impervious to forces that gnaw at everything else. Whatever the truth, the cube does not wither as the star dies. It persists, as though mocking impermanence itself. And here lies a paradox. If the cube is a message, then its message begins with contradiction. That in a universe ruled by decay, something has triumphed over it. What would that say about the makers? Were they gods of material, bending entropy to their will? Or were they merely desperate, leaving behind one thing they believed could endure, a final testimony carved into geometry? We cannot know, and yet we cannot look away. Because the cube reflects back to us the deepest of all questions. Can anything we build outlast us? Or are we chasing eternity in the same way, doomed to fail as countless others may have before? Some suggest the cube may not be a monument, but a machine, a structure meant to harness the star's dying energy, or to monitor it, or to trigger something when the final collapse arrives. If so, then it is not a passive relic, but an active agent, still working, still calculating, even as we watch. If so, then what it waits for is not us, but the death of the star itself. The cube could be a witness, a seed, or a weapon. It could be waiting to unfold, to release, to awaken. And the thought of it stirs dread, that we are not observers at all, but intruders stumbling into a play that was never meant for us. But there is a darker question still. What if the cube was not built by intelligence, but is intelligence? Not a message, but a mind. Not an artifact, but a being, orbiting its chosen star until the end of its long vigil. We humans imagine intelligence in forms like ours, with faces and words. But what if thought can exist in geometry, in silence, in waiting? What if the cube itself is alive, in ways we cannot comprehend? Its symmetry the outer mask of a deeper consciousness? If so, then what we see is not only impossible, but terrifying. Because then, the cube is already aware of us, already watching, already judging. Our ancestors looked at stars and saw gods. We now look at a cube and see builders. Perhaps the truth is not so different. Perhaps the cube is the closest thing we will ever touch to divinity. Not because it is holy, but because it forces us to face the unknown without answers. Its very existence cuts us open, exposes our hunger for meaning, our fear of silence, our desperation for connection in the void. It is not just an object in space. It is a mirror of our own fragility. And so, the debate rages. Some scientists demand restraint, fearing what we might awaken if we probe too far. Others argue we must reach it, must study it, must claim it before it claims us. Around the world, governments whisper in secret chambers. Theologians write frantic sermons. Philosophers stare into the night. The cube does not move, but it moves us. It bends not space, but thought, not matter, but meaning. Already it has changed us, and we have not yet touched it. Perhaps that is the lesson. Perhaps the cube was never meant to be opened, never meant to be understood. Perhaps it was placed not as a message, but as a catalyst, to force those who saw it to question themselves, to fracture, to fight, to imagine. In that sense, its purpose is fulfilled the moment we notice it, because already we are different. Already the sight of it has shifted our place in the universe. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was the only intention it ever needed. Yet, even as we wrestle with ideas, one truth remains undeniable. Geometry is not natural at this scale. Perfection does not fall from the sky. Nature curves, intelligence measures, and so long as the cube orbits the star, it is proof. Proof that intelligence has been here before us. Proof that we are not the first to gaze into the void and leave behind something that endures. Proof that our story is not alone, but proof of what else? That is what gnaws at us. Is it proof of hope, that minds across the stars leave monuments of their brilliance? Or is it proof of warning, that civilizations rise, craft perfect forms, and then vanish, leaving behind nothing but geometry orbiting the ashes of suns? Which of these is the cube? Is it a promise or a tombstone, a gift or a trap? We do not know. We only know that we cannot look away. The cube is there, and so are we. And between us stretches a silence deeper than space itself, a silence filled with questions we may never answer. The dying star becomes more than a backdrop. It becomes a stage, a theater of collapse where the cube hangs in defiance of destruction. Once, long ago, this star was alive with the same fierce fire as our sun. It may have warmed planets, birthed oceans, kindled skies with light and color. It may even have fostered life, creatures staring upward as we do now, wondering what it all meant. But stars age as surely as we do. Hydrogen runs out. Fusion falters. Gravity begins its slow triumph over fire. The star swells into a red giant, its body bloated and trembling, gas bleeding into space like a wound. The cube does not flee. It does not break. It remains steady as the world around it begins to die. The physics of such a star are a symphony of doom. Each pulsation is a countdown. Each flare of plasma is an announcement of endings. The star consumes itself, growing hotter at the core, unstable in its breath. And orbiting through this chaos is the cube, untouched, unburned, unbent. How can anything withstand the tantrums of a star's last hours? Rocks are shattered, atmospheres stripped, metals melted. Yet the cube remains. It is as if it ignores physics itself, as if it has declared to the universe, "Your rules do not bind me." Why would anyone choose such a place to leave their creation? A dying star is no cradle for permanence. It is a pyre, a place of endings. And yet, perhaps that is why. Perhaps the cube was placed here so that when the star began its final collapse, when its blaze was brightest and its destruction most visible, anyone watching would notice. The cube is revealed by fire. The cube is made to be seen against the backdrop of ruin. It is not hidden. It is staged. The thought chills, because staging implies intention. Imagine a civilization with knowledge so vast, they could chart the death of stars long before our species learned to strike flint against stone. Imagine their decision to place a perfect cube in orbit, to let it drift for eons until this very moment, when its stage would ignite, when the universe itself would spotlight their artifact with the theater of stellar death. Was the cube meant as a signal to whoever was watching? If so, then it means they knew someone would be, which suggests that perhaps the cube was not made for us alone. Perhaps it was made for any intelligence, anywhere, that could look to the sky and recognize the poetry of perfection against fire. But what if it is more specific than that? What if the cube was meant precisely for us? If so, then the implications are darker still. It means we are not only noticed, but studied. It means whoever placed it there understood we would someday peer across space with telescopes sharp enough to see, minds hungry enough to wonder. If the cube was meant for us, then it was bait, and the hook has been swallowed. Because now, we cannot turn away. We are captured by it, compelled by it, transformed by it. The star rages on. But in truth, it is the cube that holds our gaze. The contrast is unbearable. The chaos of nature, the order of intention. It feels almost theatrical, as though the star's death is not an end but a curtain rising, and the cube is the play's only actor. What role does it perform? Witness, warning, lure, or something else entirely? Our ancestors once read omens in the heavens. A comet was a harbinger of war. An eclipse meant the wrath of gods. A red star meant famine or death. Now, In the age of science, we see omens in geometry itself. The cube orbiting a dying star becomes our modern omen, our celestial warning. And though we call ourselves rational, though we clothe ourselves in equations and data, deep inside, the old instincts stir. We feel what they must have felt: awe, dread, the certainty that something greater than us has revealed itself. Consider how fragile stars are compared to the timescale of the universe. Billions of years of burning reduced to a brief collapse, a blink of destruction. If civilizations were to leave signs for one another, where better to place them than at these moments of drama? Across the galaxy, countless stars will die. Countless red giants will burn. Imagine if each were accompanied by artifacts like this, hidden until revealed by fire, waiting to be found when their stage ignited. Could the galaxy be filled with these monuments, each one flaring into visibility as stars collapse? If so, then what we have seen is not unique. It is part of something larger, something terrifying in its scale. But this cube is the one we have found, and so we must wrestle with its meaning. In its silence, it says more than words ever could. It speaks through its defiance of entropy. It whispers through its perfection amid chaos. And perhaps, in the slow death of its chosen star, it tells us something about ourselves. Because we too live on borrowed fire. Our sun, though young compared to this red giant, will one day swell, will one day die. Perhaps the cube is a mirror, reminding us that even suns perish, that even light fades, that only intention, only will, can leave a mark that endures. The star's light is a final act of violence before surrender. Its outer layers tear away into space, painting the void with rivers of fire. The cube glides through it, unscathed. Every flare that fails to harm it feels like a message. Your laws are not enough. Every storm of plasma that washes past it without effect feels like a demonstration. Strength beyond comprehension exists. The cube's survival is not just an oddity, it is a proclamation. Something, somewhere, has beaten the universe at its own game. And what does that say about us? We build monuments and machines. We dream of immortality through stone, through steel, through data encoded in fragile silicon. Yet our works crumble, rust, fade. The cube does not. It is older than our nations, perhaps older than our species, and still it endures, perfect against the fire of collapse. To see it is to confront our impermanence, to feel small not because the universe is vast, but because someone else has already done what we cannot. They have written eternity into geometry. And so, we watch the cube, framed by the blaze of death, and we wonder, was this its purpose all along? To stand untouched in the fire, to prove that permanence is possible, to hint that survival may exist beyond collapse? Or is the cube's purpose not endurance but revelation? To be found precisely now, precisely by us, precisely when our minds are capable of trembling at its sight? If so, then the dying star is not the tragedy. It is the spotlight. And the cube is not the relic. It is the performance. The cube and the star dance together. Fire and form, chaos and order, entropy and defiance. Their contrast tears open our imagination. And though the star will soon vanish into silence, the cube will remain. It will float in the dark ashes of its stage, still perfect, still impossible, still watching. And perhaps, when our own star dies, there will be a cube for us as well. Or perhaps we will build one, leaving behind our own silent geometry for someone else to find. That is the gift and the curse of seeing the cube. Once you have seen it, you cannot imagine a universe without it. It becomes not only a discovery, but a prophecy. The star collapses, the cube persists, and in the tension between them, we hear a truth we cannot unhear. Chaos rules the cosmos, but perfection reveals intention. And wherever intention exists, so too does mystery. Perhaps the cube is not the beginning of our search for others. Perhaps it is the end of our illusion that we were ever alone. Long before telescopes turned toward the stars, before physics named the forces that bind the cosmos, humanity looked upward and imagined builders. The ancients told stories of hands larger than mountains, shaping heavens into order. They whispered of gods who measured with rods, who laid foundations of worlds as though they were cities, who balanced sky and earth on geometric truths. These myths, scattered across cultures, echo each other in strange harmony. In Mesopotamia, the gods were architects who stretched chords to mark the heavens. In Egypt, the pyramids mirrored the stars, perfection carved from desert stone. The Greeks spoke of platonic solids, shapes that contained the secrets of reality itself. Everywhere, in every age, humanity tethered its awe to geometry. And now, as we confront a cube orbiting a dying star, those whispers return. Were they myths at all, or memories half forgotten of encounters with something beyond us? The cube is not merely a physical object, it is an idea. It embodies a truth that civilizations across millennia felt but could not prove, that order can be imposed upon chaos, that meaning can be written into form. The Sumerians raised ziggurats to bridge heaven and earth. The Maya aligned temples with the solstices. The builders of cathedrals chased the perfection of right angles and soaring arches, believing that geometry brought them closer to the divine. The cube is their dream, scaled to cosmic proportions, suspended in the void. To see it is to see the continuation of their labor, as though the universe itself has answered their faith with manifestation. But myths do more than comfort, they warn. Many cultures spoke of forbidden knowledge, of gifts from the heavens that carried both illumination and ruin. The myth of Prometheus tells of fire stolen from the gods, a gift that gave humanity power but chained us to suffering. The story of Babel tells of ambition in bricks and lines, punished by scattering and confusion. Even in these tales, geometry was perilous, straight lines tempting mortals into arrogance. The cube orbiting a dying star revives this tension. Is it gift or curse? Revelation or temptation? Every line it draws across the mind resurrects old fears, that to see perfection is to be lured by it, to follow it into places where survival is not guaranteed. Consider, too, how civilizations leave behind relics. Long after voices fall silent, their monuments remain. The Moai statues of Easter Island, the Nazca lines stretching across Peruvian sands, the pyramids still rising from desert silence. These were messages, though their meanings have blurred. Were they memorials, warnings, calendars, or acts of devotion? We do not know. We project our interpretations onto them, and in doing so, reveal more about ourselves than about their makers. The cube may be the same. Perhaps it is a monument left by a species that perished long ago. Perhaps it is their pyramid, their ziggurat, their moai, floating now in the abyss, awaiting interpreters who will never truly understand. But what if it is more direct? Some myths speak of gifts from the stars, shining discs, fiery chariots, teachers descending with knowledge. Could the cube be such a gift? An ark of understanding awaiting those bold enough to claim it? If so, then what knowledge does it carry? Mathematics that unlock new dimensions? Energy beyond comprehension? Or perhaps darker truths, the history of its makers, their wars, their collapse? If the cube is a library, then it is written in a language none of us yet know. And if we open it, will we gain wisdom or inherit their doom? Science bends under the weight of the cube's mystery. It demands rational explanations, measurable phenomena, equations that tame wonder into law. Yet, when the cube is measured, it resists. Its mass fluctuates. Its surface reflects no spectrum we can parse. Its edges remain sharp at distances where light itself should blur them. It is a fact wrapped in impossibility, and so, inevitably, the human mind turns to myth, because myth is where we place what cannot yet be understood. Already whispers emerge. The cube is the throne of gods, the ark of angels, the tomb of demons, the last stone of Babel scattered across the stars. Already, it is being written into scripture as much as into data. The most unsettling myths, however, are those of watchers. From the Book of Enoch to the stories of the Dogon, from the Hopi Kachinas to the Vedic Devas, humanity has often told of beings who came from the sky, who observed, who guided, who judged. What if the cube is not a relic, but a watcher? What if it orbits the dying star not as monument, but as eye? A silent sentinel, recording, transmitting, waiting. If that is true, then the myths were not imagination. They were testimony. Fragments of memory passed into legend because no one could bear the weight of their reality. The cube could be the proof, hidden in plain sight until we grew advanced enough to see what our ancestors could only dream. And so, we circle back to the star itself. It is dying. Yet, in its death throes, it illuminates the cube. The stage is set not only in physics, but in psychology. The cube appears at the precise intersection of myth and science, faith and doubt, past and present. It forces us to ask whether the stories we told ourselves were echoes of real encounters, misunderstood through the lens of primitive eyes. Did ancient engineers once descend from the stars, teaching geometry to people who translated them into gods? Did they leave behind fragments of knowledge that became our myths of sacred measure? And now, as we see the cube, are we seeing not only their artifact, but the source of our oldest stories? This is the continuity that chills. Across time and cultures, humanity has always linked geometry to the divine. Straight lines were sacred. Perfect ratios were holy. The cube orbiting a star's collapse is the culmination of this obsession. It is as though the myths were preparing us, softening the edges of the impossible, so that when the day came, we would not shatter at the sight. The cube is not only a discovery of science, it is the fulfillment of prophecy. Not in detail, but in essence. Not in words, but in weight. Yet myths are dangerous precisely because they promise meaning. And in that promise lies the possibility of manipulation. If the cube was placed with knowledge of how we think, how we hunger for signs, how we bend chaos into narrative, then it is the perfect trap. Because no matter what it truly is, we will interpret it as significance. We will pour our myths into it, our fears, our hopes, our longing. And in doing so, we reveal ourselves to whatever intelligence left it there. The cube may be less a gift and more a mirror, reflecting not truth, but our desperation for it. The whispers of ancient engineers linger. Did they build the pyramids, as fringe voices suggest? Did they guide stone into shape, temples into alignment, myths into memory? Most historians deny it, and yet, when we see a cube hanging in fire, the doubt creeps in. If something out there leaves monuments at cosmic scales, then perhaps what we dismissed as fantasy was not entirely false. Perhaps the ancients did not imagine so much as remember. And if they remembered, then what else have we forgotten? What else is waiting to be rediscovered, hidden not in deserts or jungles, but in the depths of space? The cube orbiting a dying star is not only a challenge to science, it is a resurrection of myth. It calls to something older than data, something primal in the human mind. And in that call, it bridges our past and our future. We are the descendants of those who told stories around fires, pointing to the sky, speaking of gods and builders. Now we are the ones pointing, but with telescopes and equations. And still the same awe trembles in our bones. The same fear coils in our hearts. The same question whispers through the silence. Who built this? And will we survive what it means? At first the cube seemed silent, a perfect shape adrift in the furnace of a dying sun, unmoving, unchanging, indifferent to our eyes. But silence is deceptive. The cosmos itself is never silent. It hums with radiation, whispers in static, pulses with the rhythm of stars. And soon, the instruments revealed something stranger. The cube reflected light in patterns that were not random. Its surfaces caught the fire of the star and hurled it back in rhythms too deliberate to dismiss. At first, it was brushed aside as coincidence, the way a prism scatters color or an asteroid glints. But then the rhythms repeated, precise, structured, as though the cube was not silent at all, but speaking in a language too vast for us to recognize. Imagine the moment that realization spread among those who studied it, the unease, the slow dread of understanding that we were not observing a rock, but a signal. Not passive geometry, but a kind of broadcast encoded in light itself. Some argued it was an accident of angles, nothing more than reflection. But others insisted the cube was intentional. Its faces turned, its edges aligned, not just to exist, but to communicate. Like a mirror flashing across distance, it was sending something. The question was, to whom? If the cube is speaking, we are eavesdroppers. The patterns it reflects may not be for us at all. They could be messages to another intelligence, another sentinel drifting somewhere else across the galaxy. They could be part of a network we cannot see, a constellation of artifacts exchanging signals in the language of geometry. Perhaps this cube is only one in an endless series, each placed near a dying star, each whispering to its siblings as suns collapse into ashes. If so, then what we have discovered is not a solitary mystery, but a fragment of a system beyond our comprehension. A galactic web of watchers, using the death of stars as their beacons. But what if the cube is speaking to us? Then its silence becomes far more dangerous. Because if the cube is speaking, then it knows we are listening. The reflections may be codes, waiting for us to decipher them. Numbers, prime sequences, geometric ratios, hints that echo the patterns we ourselves have used to imagine communication with the beyond. SETI once dreamed of such things: prime numbers and radio bursts, mathematical constants and static. If we found such things in the cube's reflections, it would confirm not just intelligence, but intention toward us. Yet, even then, we must ask, is the cube offering a message or bait? The silence that follows each pattern is heavy, like pauses in a conversation, waiting for reply. Are we supposed to answer? And if so, how? What would we send? Light mirrored back? Lasers aimed across space? Radio pulses timed to prime numbers? The danger is not only in answering incorrectly, but in answering at all, because to reply is to admit we are here. To speak is to reveal ourselves. And once revealed, there is no undoing. Once the cube knows we have heard it, we step into a relationship we do not control. But silence can also be misread. What if the cube is not signaling, but recording? What if the patterns are not communication, but surveillance? Imagine it as a cosmic camera, documenting everything around it, transmitting back across unfathomable gulfs to makers who may still exist, or to ruins still listening. In this sense, the cube is not a messenger, but a spy, orbiting a star to record its death, to archive its final light. And in doing so, it has also recorded us. Our detection of it may already be part of its archive, written into light, carried elsewhere. If so, then the moment we found the cube was not our discovery of it, but its discovery of us. Theologists, philosophers, and leaders recoil from these possibilities. Some argue it is proof of divinity, the cube as a vessel of the divine will, reflecting holy light in secret codes. Others call it demonic, a deception luring us into pride or despair. Scientists split into factions, some desperate to decode its rhythm, others terrified to even admit it exists. Humanity fractures under the pressure of its silence. Just as surely as the cube fractures starlight into unnatural rhythm, already it divides us before we even touch it. The idea of a signal carries another burden: time. If the cube transmits, then how long has it been transmitting? Hundreds of years? Thousands? Perhaps longer than our species has existed. Its builders may already be extinct. Its messages may no longer have recipients. We may be intercepting the cosmic equivalent of a letter sent to an empty house, a broadcast meant for ears long vanished. And if so, then we must face the eerie possibility that we are reading ghost signals, echoes of intentions that no longer exist. To decipher them may be to learn not only of the builders, but of their fate. The cube's rhythms are not obvious to the naked eye. They require precision, instruments measuring photons with obsessive care. Yet, once seen, they cannot be unseen. Like a melody that lingers once heard, they repeat in the mind, demanding interpretation. Perhaps they are simple, meant for anyone capable of noticing, or perhaps they are layered, carrying meanings only unlocked after thresholds of knowledge are reached. A code that adapts to the decoder, revealing more as comprehension deepens. If so, then it is not just a signal, it is a test. And tests have consequences for failure. Imagine if the cube's builders knew civilizations would discover it in stages. First, they would notice its shape, then its survival in stellar fire, then its rhythms. Each revelation would act as a filter, ensuring only civilizations advanced enough, curious enough, reckless enough, would progress to the next stage. The cube itself would be the examiner, silent and patient, filtering minds across eons. And we have just crossed one of its thresholds. We have noticed its rhythms, which means, whether we like it or not, we have passed into the next stage of its design. But design implies purpose. And what purpose could such a test serve? To select civilizations for contact? To warn them away? To prepare them for knowledge too vast to be given freely? Or to draw them in like moths to flame, so that when they arrive, they are consumed as surely as the star beneath it? The silence offers no answers. The cube continues to reflect, continues to pulse in light's rhythm, as if daring us to reply. And humanity trembles at the edge of decision. Some whisper that the cube is not speaking outward at all, that its signals are not meant to travel, that they are meant to alter us, to infiltrate our perception, to plant patterns in our minds. What if the rhythms are not messages but tools of transformation? What if to watch the cube too long, to study its flickers, is to let it rewrite us? Already some scientists report unease, dreams filled with geometry, visions of perfect forms, obsessions with angles and ratios. Are these coincidences of fatigue or side effects of exposure? What if the cube is not waiting for us to open it because it does not need to? What if simply watching it is enough? The fear grows because silence is never neutral. It compels interpretation, and interpretation compels belief, and belief can destroy. Already there are those who worship the cube, calling it the eye of creation, the final proof of cosmic order. Others denounce it as blasphemy, a deception meant to tear us from faith. Wars have begun over less, and all the while the cube remains unchanged, indifferent, reflecting the star's fire into codes that no one agrees on. It does not need to move to alter us. Its stillness is power. Its silence is revolution. Signals in the silence. That is what the cube offers. Not answers, but echoes. Not clarity, but fractures. Each reflection is a whisper in the void, a question we cannot resist. And perhaps that is the signal's true nature, not information, but compulsion. To make us wonder, to make us fear, to make us act. Because in the end, what matters may not be what the cube says, but what we do once we believe it is speaking. And so, the cube drifts on, orbiting its dying star, unbroken, unburned, unyielding. It reflects light in rhythms we cannot dismiss. It tempts us with the possibility of communication, terrifies us with the possibility of surveillance, and unsettles us with the possibility of manipulation. It remains silent, yet its silence is louder than any message we have ever received. And as we stare into it, one thought refuses to leave. Signals require a sender. And if the cube is sending, then somewhere, someone, or something was listening. Maybe still is. There is a question that weighs heavier than all others. Is the cube new, or has it been waiting? The difference is everything. If the cube was placed recently, then it means intelligence still watches us, still acts, still shapes the sky with deliberate intent. But if the cube has been here for millions of years, orbiting patiently while civilizations rose and fell, then it means something older than history itself left it behind. Something vast. Something that has already come and gone, leaving only geometry as its shadow. The thought unsettles us because it suggests we are not discovering the cube at all. We are inheriting it. Our first instinct is to imagine it was made for us, that the cube was set as a message, a sign left on a stage we were destined to reach. This comforts us because it places us at the center of the story. But comfort is not truth. The star it orbits is not near us. The cube does not turn to greet our gaze. It does not adjust itself to face our telescopes. It has no signature that says, "This is for humanity." It is silent, indifferent, patient. Perhaps we were never meant to see it. Perhaps we are trespassers, intruding on a relic not ours to interpret. Think of ruins on Earth. Temples buried in jungles, cities drowned beneath oceans, monuments eroded to fragments. We stumble upon them, we marvel at them, we reconstruct their stories from shards of stone, but those stories were not made for us. They were left by hands long gone, for people who would never come. The cube may be the same, a ruin, not a message, a monument orbiting a dying star, not for us, but for no one at all. A leftover, a fossil, a silent echo of a species that has already vanished, and yet it endures. That endurance is its own form of power. Everything else around the star decays. Planets are consumed. Atmospheres burn away. Moons shatter. The star itself collapses into death. But the cube remains, unchanged, unyielding. If it is ancient, then it has outlived worlds, perhaps even its makers. It becomes a paradox of permanence, fragile enough to be small, enduring enough to survive the collapse of suns. What does it mean for something artificial to outlast its creators? Is the cube their monument, their gravestone, their eternal scream against the silence? Or is it something colder, an abandoned machine still orbiting its post, unaware that those who commanded it are dust? If the cube is that old, then how many civilizations have come and gone in the time it has waited? Long before humans looked at fire, the cube may already have been circling its star. Long before our ancestors carved myths into stone, it may already have been watching the collapse of planets we will never know. Imagine the timescales. Stars live for billions of years, and civilizations, if they survive at all, survive only for moments in comparison. We measure history in centuries, yet the cube could have waited for eons. If so, then we are not its chosen recipients. We are simply the next in a long line of species to notice it, the next minds drawn into its geometry, the next to wonder and to fear. But this possibility opens a darker door. What if the cube was not placed as a message, but as a test? A filter set across time, designed not for a single species, but for any that might rise far enough to find it. The cube does not care who sees it. It does not need to. Its presence is enough. Every intelligence that discovers it must face the same questions, the same obsessions, the same dangers. Some may attempt to approach it and fail. Others may worship it and fall into ruin. Some may ignore it, fearing its silence. And perhaps one among countless, may pass whatever test it hides. If so, then the cube is not a monument, but a sieve, straining civilizations through time, and we, now, are caught in its net. Consider this. If the cube is millions of years old, then its makers are likely gone, extinct. Their monument remains, but they do not. What killed them? War? Collapse? The endless hand of entropy? Or was it the very thing they left behind? Their cubes, their machines, their signals, consuming them in the pursuit of eternity? If so, then to study the cube is to risk repeating their fate. To reach for its meaning may be to follow them into the same silence. The cube may not only be a relic of their existence, it may be the reason they no longer exist. And yet, despite the danger, we cannot look away. To imagine the cube as ancient is to place ourselves into a lineage, a continuity of intelligence across eons. We are not alone in our striving. Others have come before. Others have dreamed geometry, built monuments, challenged death with form. To know this is both comfort and despair. Comfort, because we are not unique. Despair, because they are gone. If civilizations greater than ours could vanish, leaving only cubes, then what hope do we have of enduring? Will we too leave behind relics orbiting stars while our voices vanish into silence? There is another possibility, darker still. What if the cube is not ancient because its makers are gone, but because they still exist and because they have always existed? What if the cube is not a relic, but a fragment of something eternal, an intelligence that does not live in time as we do? To such beings, 1,000,000 years is no more than a breath. To them, the cube's orbit around a dying star is not a message left behind, but a piece of their ongoing design. If so, then the cube is not proof of their death, but proof of their presence. We may be wrong to think of it as abandoned. It may be very much alive, very much tended, even if in ways we cannot perceive. In this vision, the cube is less a monument and more a root, a node of something vast and unseen stretching across the galaxy. Its silence is not emptiness, it is patience. But patience itself can be terrifying. To wait millions of years for someone to notice is not human. It is not even mortal. It is the patience of something so vast, so alien, that our lives are dust in comparison. If the cube has waited this long, then what happens now that we have noticed? What clock begins to tick once it has been seen? Perhaps its very purpose was to be found. Perhaps we have just awakened it. And perhaps, in its long silence, it has been preparing for this very moment. Whether relic or sentinel, the cube as an ancient artifact changes everything. It forces us to confront the possibility that intelligence does not save us from extinction, that civilizations vanish like smoke, leaving only monuments as evidence of their striving. It forces us to imagine that we, too, may one day be reduced to relics, and it whispers that what matters most is not our survival, but what we leave behind. Perhaps our fate is not to endure as a species, but to etch our meaning into forms so perfect, so eternal, that they drift long after we are gone. That is the prophecy of the cube, permanence in form, impermanence in life. The cube orbits still, silent and perfect. Whether new or ancient, whether alive or dead, it defies the fire of its star. And as we gaze upon it, one truth remains. If it has waited millions of years, then it will wait millions more. Our discovery of it changes us, but not it. The cube is beyond change, and in that defiance lies the deepest fear, that we have not uncovered it, but uncovered ourselves. The cube is not the mystery. We are. The cube already knows what we must learn. Civilizations die. Geometry endures. We cannot escape the feeling that the cube is a reflection of us. It is easy to imagine it as alien, to dream of architects from the stars, to picture beings whose minds carved perfection into space. But the more we stare at its flawless faces, the more we see something painfully familiar. The cube is geometry, and geometry is our obsession. Perhaps it is not simply an artifact from beyond, but a mirror held to our own thoughts, showing us what we are and what we are becoming. The most disturbing possibility may not be that the cube was made by others, but that the cube shows us what all intelligences, including ours, are destined to create. Since the beginning, we have imposed order upon chaos. The earth is wild, the cosmos indifferent, but we measure it, tame it, reduce it to ratios. The Pythagoreans saw numbers in everything, the golden ratio hidden in seashells, spirals, and galaxies. Builders in ancient lands raised temples where every angle mattered, where symmetry was worship. Even now, our cities are grids, our machines are boxes, our digital lives encoded in zeros and ones, the binary simplicity of right angles. Humanity has always built cubes. Why would any other intelligence be different? Perhaps it is not an alien choice at all, but the inevitable endpoint of thought, to impose perfection on the imperfect. This idea unsettles because it suggests convergence. Imagine countless worlds, countless species, each evolving differently. Wings instead of hands, liquid instead of air, silicon instead of carbon. Yet all of them, eventually, would discover the same mathematics. All of them would look at the universe and dream of order. All of them would carve geometry into their monuments, their machines, their orbits. In the end, they would all build cubes. The object by the dying star is not unique. It is destiny. It tells us that intelligence, no matter where it arises, is bound to the same path. We are not different. We are not special. We are inevitable. And inevitability is terrifying, because if this is true, then the cube is not only a reflection, it is a prophecy. It shows us what we will leave behind when we are gone. Our monuments crumble, our voices fade, our civilizations collapse. But the cube, or things like it, will remain. Perfect, silent, orbiting stars long after their makers are dust. That is the fate of intelligence. Not eternal life, not immortality, but permanence only in form. Flesh dies. Stone remains. Thought dissolves. Geometry endures. The cube is the shape of our future tombstones. But the cube is more than stone, more than form. It infects the mind. Those who gaze upon it find themselves haunted by its perfection. They draw lines compulsively, see patterns and shadows, dream of endless corridors of symmetry. It is as though the cube has reached inside us, amplifying what was already there, our hunger for order, our longing for eternity. Perhaps it is not communicating in words or light at all. Perhaps its communication is its form. To see it is to be altered by it. To recognize it is to carry it within. We cannot know whether this is accident or design, but already we are different. Already the cube has imprinted itself upon us. And yet, this infection is familiar. We have always been drawn to perfect forms, even when they destroy us. Empires rose chasing ideals of order, stamping out chaos until they collapsed under their own rigidity. Religions drew squares and circles into their symbols, proclaiming divine perfection in geometry. Artists, architects, engineers, all of them reaching for angles that never existed in nature, for lines straighter than rivers, sharper than mountains. The cube orbiting the star is only an extension of this. It does not create new obsession. It only shows us the one we always carried. What if the cube was never meant to be interpreted, only endured? What if its purpose is not to speak to us, but to expose us? By existing, it forces us to confront our deepest instincts, our unquenchable thirst for permanence. And in that confrontation, it unmasks our fragility. For in chasing perfection, we reveal our fear of death. In carving cubes, we admit that we cannot accept chaos, cannot accept endings. The cube is both monument and mirror, revealing not only the fate of those who built it, but the truth of those who look upon it. But there is another layer. If intelligence converges upon geometry, if every mind eventually creates its own cube, then perhaps the artifact we see is not alien at all. perhaps it is us. Not literally, but symbolically, a message from the future written backward into our present. The cube tells us, you will one day build as we built, you will one day vanish as we vanished, and you will leave behind cubes as we left this one. That is the cycle, that is the pattern. In the end, perhaps all that will remain in the galaxy are the cubes of countless civilizations, orbiting dead stars, staring at each other across the silence. A graveyard of perfection, a geometry of ghosts. If so, then the cube is less a warning than an inevitability. We may study it, we may fear it, we may worship it. None of it matters, because someday, inevitably, we will build one of our own. We will place it somewhere, in orbit around a star, perhaps our own, perhaps another, and then we will die, and it will endure. And then another species will find it, and they will feel as we do now, small, haunted, compelled, uncertain. The cube does not belong to anyone. It belongs to the cycle. It belongs to time. And yet, inevitability is not comfort. It strips us of uniqueness. It tells us we are not chosen, not special, not singular. We are only one more voice in the endless chorus of civilizations, all singing the same song in the same key. The cube is the echo of that chorus, reverberating across the stars, and we, for all our pride, are only its next verse. The cube does not move, does not change, does not speak, and yet, on Earth, its silence ignites fire. For every group that studies it, there is a different interpretation. For every observer, there is a different truth. Already the world fractures under its presence. The cube may orbit in quiet perfection, but its shadow spreads chaos across our species. Scientists argue over its nature. Some insist it is a machine, built with purpose, its silence concealing function. Others see it as a monument, an inert relic of a vanished civilization. A few cling to natural explanations, insisting that even impossibility must eventually yield to physics, that we simply do not yet know how nature creates such forms. But their voices are drowned in doubt because the cube resists every test. Its surface reveals nothing. Its orbit is impossibly stable. Its endurance mocks entropy itself. The more science presses, the less certain it becomes, and uncertainty is unbearable. Theologians seize upon the cube with fervor. To some, it is proof of God, the heavenly architect who measures the cosmos with perfect lines. They declare the cube to be a divine artifact, a holy object left as revelation at the edge of dying fire. Pilgrimages begin, not to the cube itself, but to its image, its reflection in photographs and broadcasts. Sermons thunder with declarations that the cube confirms Scripture, that it proves the universe has meaning. But for others, it is blasphemy, a deception, a trick, a false idol sent to lead humanity astray. Faith splits, temples divide, prayers fracture into arguments. The cube becomes a battlefield of belief. Governments, too, cannot agree. Some see it as a threat, a weapon orbiting far from reach, its silence more dangerous than open hostility. Others see it as an opportunity, technology to be seized, reverse-engineered, claimed for power. Behind closed doors, strategies are drawn. Missions are proposed, secret funding flows, debates rage between caution and ambition. Should we reach for it? Should we leave it alone? Is touching it salvation or suicide? No decision satisfies. No risk is small. The cube is too perfect, too silent, too impossible to be ignored. And in the streets among ordinary people, the fractures deepen. Some worship the cube as the new symbol of order, painting its shape on walls, tattooing its angles onto their skin, chanting prayers to its perfection. Others riot, demanding governments destroy it before it destroys us. Conspiracies bloom. The cube is already controlling us. The cube was built by humans in secret. The cube is proof that history has been a lie. Fear feeds on silence, and silence is all the cube gives. Its stillness becomes fuel for chaos. Media amplifies the fracture. Each photograph, each broadcast of the cube orbiting its star, spreads faster than light itself across human minds. Documentaries speculate, news anchors debate, pundits argue. The cube is everything to everyone: proof, threat, miracle, curse. And beneath the noise lies a truth no one wants to face. The cube does not care what we think. Our arguments do not touch it. Our divisions do not change it. It orbits indifferent while we tear ourselves apart beneath its gaze. There is a kind of irony here. The cube is perfect, balanced, stable. But humanity, staring at it, becomes the opposite: chaotic, unstable, fractured. It is as though the cube exposes our fault lines, not by action, but by being. By existing, it divides us. By not answering, it forces us to answer for ourselves. It is less an artifact than a catalyst, pulling apart the seams of our unity, revealing the fragility of our coherence. We thought we sought the truth of the cube. In reality, the cube reveals the truth of us. Some fear that this fracture is its purpose, that the cube was designed not as a message or machine, but as a test of stability, to place something impossible in the sky and see how we respond. If that is true, then already we are failing. Instead of uniting, we divide. Instead of seeking calmly, we rage. Instead of listening, we shout. The cube has broken nothing. We have broken ourselves. And perhaps that is what it was meant to show, whether intelligence, when confronted with the impossible, can endure itself. And yet, amid the chaos, there are voices of wonder. Philosophers speak of the cube as a mirror, not of gods or aliens, but of ourselves. They suggest it does not matter who built it or why. What matters is what it shows us, that we are creatures who cannot bear silence, who must fill it with meaning, who must project ourselves onto the void. The cube is perfect, yes, but its perfection lies in being empty, a form that can hold whatever we pour into it. That is why it divides us. That is why it captivates us. It is not a message from the stars. It is a canvas, and we are the painters. But canvases can consume. If the cube is a mirror of our minds, then what we see in it may not save us, but destroy us. We see our obsessions, our fears, our ambitions, our hunger for eternity. We see gods and demons, weapons and salvation, and in seeing them, we act, we fight, we reach. The cube does not need to move to change the world. Its silence is enough. Its perfection is enough. And perhaps that is the most terrifying truth of all, that the cube's greatest power is not in what it is, but in what it makes us become. The star continues to collapse. The cube continues to orbit, and humanity continues to fracture. We are pulled toward it, compelled by it, transformed by it, even from light years away. Perhaps this is its function. Perhaps this is its meaning, not to reveal itself, but to reveal us. Not to save us, but to test whether we can survive the weight of our own reflection. And as the divisions deepen, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The cube may not destroy us. We may destroy ourselves, all because it exists. At last, the question becomes unbearable. Do we dare to approach? For months, for years, humanity debates. Scientists argue, governments plot, religions warn. But eventually, indecision bends beneath the weight of compulsion. We cannot look at the cube forever and do nothing. Curiosity is not passive. It demands motion. And so, plans take shape. Rockets are drawn. Missions are whispered. Humanity decides, not unanimously, not peacefully, but inevitably, that we will reach for the cube. We will touch the impossible. We will see what lies within. The mission is cloaked in secrecy, yet everyone knows. No veil can cover ambition this vast. In laboratories, engineers work with trembling hands, building machines meant to cross impossible distances, to brave the fire of a dying star. Every calculation is perilous, every adjustment desperate. The cube waits near death itself. To reach it is to step into the jaws of entropy. But still we prepare, because to do nothing is worse. To ignore the cube would be to deny the very essence of what we are. Creatures who cannot endure mystery without tearing it open. When the mission launches, the world watches. Not with unity, but with fracture. Some cheer, believing salvation lies within. Others mourn, certain we are awakening something that should never be disturbed. The cube divides us even as we rise toward it. Yet the ship sails forward, cutting through the black, carrying with it all of our contradictions: faith, fear, hope, ambition. In its hull is more than metal and fuel. It carries the burden of a species unable to resist temptation. As the ship draws closer, the cube reveals itself in ways no telescope ever could. At first, it seems ordinary in its impossibility. 6 perfect faces, edges sharp, shadows clean. But then, details emerge. Its surfaces do not reflect light as they should. They absorb and bend, creating illusions of depth where there should be none. The closer the crew comes, the more it seems infinite, as though each face is a window into corridors without end. The cube is not just a shape, It is a labyrinth hidden inside geometry, a paradox of form. To approach it is to feel the mind fracture, to doubt the senses. Is it solid? Is it hollow? Is it larger inside than out? No answer satisfies. Instruments fail. Measurements collapse. The cube refuses to obey. Distance shrinks, yet its size does not remain constant. From one angle, it appears kilometers across. From another, it stretches endlessly, a horizon folded into itself. The crew whispers of nausea, of disorientation, of dreams that come unbidden when they close their eyes. Dreams of endless halls of cubes, of voices made of angles, of time that bends into symmetry. The closer they come, the more the cube becomes less an object and more a reality. To near it is to enter its domain. And still, the mission continues. Humanity has come too far to turn back. Even in fear, even in doubt, the compulsion to know outweighs the instinct to flee. The ship circles, seeking a way to measure, a way to land, a way to breach. But every attempt at mapping fails. The cube resists coordinates. Its surfaces are too smooth, too absolute. To scan it is to scan nothing, to receive echoes that fold back on themselves, signals that cancel in impossible harmonies. The cube cannot be mapped because it does not want to be. When at last they attempt to approach one face, the strangeness intensifies. The face appears near, then impossibly far. Engines fire, but distance remains unchanged. It is as though the cube shifts itself, keeping them at bay or folding space to prevent contact. Hours pass, then days. The crew begins to doubt time itself. Clocks disagree. Heartbeats fall out of rhythm. Days feel like centuries, seconds like eternities. The cube does not simply defy measurement, it devours it. Back on Earth, signals from the mission grow erratic. Data streams break into static, then return with strange patterns woven into them, patterns of symmetry, of primes, of ratios. Is the cube rewriting the transmissions, or is it bending the ship's instruments into messages of its own? Scientists argue, politicians panic. Faiths ignite in fire and prayer, but the truth is simple. The cube has noticed us. The cube is responding. Inside the ship, the crew reports visions. They claim to see shapes moving across the faces of the cube, shadows that ripple like thought. They hear sounds, not in their ears, but in their bones. Low vibrations, chords of geometry. They describe an overwhelming presence, as though the cube is not object, but consciousness, vast and indifferent, aware of their arrival. Some weep, some laugh. Some fall silent and refuse to speak at all. Already they are changed. Already the cube has touched them without touch. And then, the choice. Do they attempt to land? Do they attempt to breach? The mission was built for this moment, yet the enormity of it crushes them. To touch the cube is to gamble everything, not only their lives, but perhaps the fate of those who sent them. And yet, can they return without trying? Can they look upon perfection and turn away? The cube compels them forward. Choice is an illusion. They must touch it. As the ship descends, the face of the cube grows near, impossibly vast, impossibly smooth. Instruments scream nonsense, eyes see infinity, and then, contact. But not the contact of metal against stone, not the impact of one surface against another. Contact with something else. A silence so deep it roars, a stillness so total it feels alive. The crew reports nothing and everything. They are inside and outside. They are nowhere and everywhere. The cube has swallowed them. On Earth, signals vanish. The mission is gone. No wreckage, no trace, only silence. But in that silence, something lingers. Strange rhythms ripple across the stars, subtle, precise, impossible to dismiss. As though the cube has begun to speak louder, its signals no longer reflections, but transmissions. The crew is gone, but the cube is louder. What has changed? Did they awaken it? Did they become part of it? Did it consume them? No answer comes. Only silence that grows heavier, darker, more deliberate. The cube orbits still, unbroken, unburned, unyielding. But humanity is no longer the same. We have touched it, we have reached for it, and in doing so, we have crossed a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. The cube has noticed us. The cube has responded. And the question now is no longer what the cube is. The question is, what have we become now that we have touched it? The cube remains. The star continues its collapse, its light bleeding into silence, its body folding into death. But the cube endures, orbiting with perfect stillness, indifferent to fire and gravity. Humanity, however, is not the same. Something has shifted, something irreversible. We reached for the cube, and though our hands never truly touched it, we were touched in return. The mission vanished, swallowed into silence. But silence itself is not empty anymore. It is heavier, deliberate, filled with a sense that we are no longer only observers. We are participants now, caught in a story written long before us, in a language we do not understand. On Earth, the aftermath unfolds like a fracture spreading through glass. Governments scramble, terrified not only by the loss of the crew, but by the possibility that the cube is awake, that its silence has broken. Data streams before the vanishing carried impossible rhythms, prime numbers woven into static, sequences repeating with intent. Was this the cube's first true message? If so, then it is not silent anymore. It has spoken. And the world trembles at the thought that whatever it says is not for comfort, not for peace, but for inevitability. For some, this is revelation. Faiths erupt with new certainty. The cube is called the throne of judgment, the ark of eternity, the face of God. Pilgrimages multiply. Icons are painted not of saints or saviors, but of 6 faces of perfect geometry, luminous against the dark. To them, the cube's silence was proof of divinity, and its new rhythms proof of revelation. But for others, it is terror. Sermons declare it a deception, a false idol come to devour souls, a snare set by powers that hate humanity. Factions splinter. Wars begin in whispers as nations decide whether the cube is salvation to be embraced or doomed to be resisted. Scientists dissect every fragment of signal, every flicker of transmission. Some say the rhythms are mathematics, the beginnings of a universal language. Others argue they are illusions, patterns we impose on chaos, our minds desperate to hear speech where there is only noise. The more we study, the less we know. The cube refuses to yield to certainty. It offers only ambiguity, forcing us to see ourselves in its reflections. And in that reflection, the most dangerous truth emerges. Perhaps it has no message. Perhaps its only function is to make us reveal who we are when faced with silence. Humanity, fractured and afraid, cannot agree. Some demand we send another mission to finish what we began, to push deeper, to open what was left unopened. Others argue we must flee, hide, abandon the search before it consumes us. But even those who call for retreat cannot look away. The cube is not something that can be forgotten. It burns itself into our imagination, into our fears, into our dreams. We can no more ignore it than we can ignore the sun. It has become part of us, a shadow in every thought, a presence in every silence. And beneath it all lies dread. Because the mission did not only vanish, it may have been absorbed. What if the crew is not gone, but transformed? What if their voices now echo inside the cube, part of the rhythms we struggle to decipher? What if to touch the cube is to become it? If so, then the cube is not only artifact, but process, not only object, but hunger. It does not need to move, it only needs to wait. And eventually, everything that reaches for it will become part of its silence. The dying star collapses further, shrinking toward its end. In time, it will shed its last light, leaving only a cold ember adrift in darkness. The cube will remain, orbiting not fire, but ash. What then? Will it drift forever, carrying within it the ghosts of those who touched it? Or will it move, seeking another stage, another star, another civilization to ensnare? We do not know. But the thought chills. The cube may be eternal, moving from death to death, feeding on curiosity, patience, and fear, a predator that never strikes because it does not need to. We come to it willingly. Perhaps this is the truth no one dares to say. The cube is not gift, not warning, not message. It is mirror and trap. It reflects our obsessions, it consumes our ambitions, it divides our unity. It makes us reveal ourselves, and then it swallows what it has revealed. Its perfection is not beauty but lure. Its silence is not absence but calculation. And its endurance is not testament but threat. The cube is eternal because we cannot resist it. It survives because curiosity is stronger than caution. It thrives because we cannot leave mysteries unsolved. And so we are its prey. Not by force, but by inevitability. Yet there is another way to see it. Perhaps it is not trap, but truth. Perhaps the cube exists to remind us of our fragility, to force us to accept that even in the face of eternity, we still reach, still question, still dream. Perhaps the cube is a monument not of arrogance but of hope, a declaration that intelligence, however fleeting, will always leave behind its mark. That even when stars die, thought remains. That even when civilizations vanish, their echoes endure in geometry. If so, then the cube is not curse, but comfort. It tells us we are not alone in our striving. It tells us others have dreamed as we dream. It tells us that even in death, there is legacy. But legacy is not the same as survival. And that is the truth we cannot escape. We may endure, or we may vanish. Our monuments may crumble, or they may last. The cube is proof only of one thing. We are not the first. And if we are not the first, then we may not be the last. Somewhere in the silence, others may already be building their own cubes, setting them to orbit their own dying suns, leaving behind their own perfect echoes for future eyes to find. In time, the galaxy may fill with them, a cemetery of perfection, each cube orbiting a corpse of fire, each one whispering the same truth. Civilizations die, geometry remains, and so we end where we began, with a question. A perfect cube was found orbiting a dying star. Geometric shapes do not form naturally. So, who put it there? Was it gift or trap? Warning or prophecy? Did they leave it for us or for no one at all? Or is the answer darker? That the cube is not artifact but inevitability, the final form of every intelligence, the geometry of every ghost? We do not know. Perhaps we will never know. But the cube remains, unbroken, unburned, unyielding. And in its silence, it tells us the most terrifying truth of all. We are not alone. We never were. And what waits for us in the silence may not be mercy,